So we had this like period where we were doing it from our apartment. We set up this thing with like Instagram and WhatsApp and Google Sheets and whatever to like arrange collections from people. The stuff arrived literally in our apartments. We quality checked and steamed the items here. We photographed them literally on our white wall in our bedroom and we posted them online for sale. And we didn't even have a website at this stage, we just had an Instagram page. And yeah, it kind of like, it just basically our apartment got overrun with other people's clothes, which is to say it grew and there was obvious signs of demand for it. And then people were also buying the stuff from us because we took nice photos. I guess we were nice and consistent, responded very quickly if people wanted to know more details. I guess like we started to take what was purely an idea, obviously inspired from what other companies were doing, but an idea that was albeit hacked together but still working.
Welcome to Founder Real Talk, honest conversations about what it really takes to be a founder. Welcome to Founder Real Talk. Today I'm here with Nick, and Nick is a software engineer and also co-founder of Thrift, I heard, South Africa's first resale as a service platform. So Nick's journey is actually quite fascinating and quite an impressive one, I would say, from Google to GoDaddy, and now, well, from the very big top tech companies, and now you're betting on fashion and resale and sustainability back home in the mother city in Cape Town. And I also got to know that the startup you started is tackling not just resale, but also convenience and impact. Yeah, so which is quite cool. So reducing waste, making fashion more affordable, creating jobs in the process. So, but that's not about whatever you've been accomplished or what you've done about titles. It's about real talk, and it's in particular about leaving a safe space like a big tech corporate with probably like an amazing culture and whatever, and now starting something from scratch in South Africa, but also being like experiencing the joy of a founder. So I'm really curious about what you're gonna share today. Maybe first question over to you. How do you normally introduce yourself, Nick? Are you a fashion guy?
No, that's not normally how I introduce myself. I like fashion and I've always enjoyed it, but I guess, I would probably say like I am now an entrepreneur, but co-founder of Thrift. Yeah, historically, I prefer to see myself as a creator or an inventor in the space of like digital products. That's sort of been my whole background. Nowadays, it's sort of blurring the lines between digital and real world and all that. But a entrepreneur, creative, engineer, a bit of everything, really.
Yeah. Would you say that you are even more creative now in building the startup versus, I mean, there's this saying that I always say when you work at Google and probably also at GoDaddy, at big tech, well, there used to be startups, I don't know, like they're corporates, but they say that we still have a lot of like freedom and like people are really creative. And I mean, fun fact that, I lived next to Google, and I know they had this policy in Munich that people were not allowed to walk barefoot.
I don't actually know about that, but it could have been a thing. I can't say I ever tried to walk barefoot there, but maybe.
Oh, I've heard it before, but yeah.
But to your question of like, am I more creative now than, working in big tech? Personally, yes. I think that experience made me realize that I like to have less things in my way when trying to create something, no matter how great they are. And they really are great companies to work for, and they provide so much opportunity, and there's a lot of power there because of how much is that you can leverage or people you can work with. But I personally prefer the whole not being weighed down by bureaucracy and process. And inevitably, at any organization of that scale, it has to be there for good reason. And I find that can be sometimes take a small idea that's simple that you just want to make in a weekend and balloon it into like a month-long process. But
Yeah.
So pros and cons, and again, it always depends on the type of person or what you're trying to make or whatever. But I personally now feel more creative and, like, broadly speaking, because of being a founder, like, you have to do a bit of everything. You're not really anything in particular, hence my kind of, I don't even know what I am intro, but
The title, you're a problem solver, I guess.
yeah, that's exactly. And I think that is quite exciting, quite scary, but it just genuinely feels more creative, and that I'm learning so much more in such a short space of time at the moment.
Yeah. So can you tell me a bit about how that journey started? Like, how did you, I don't know, was there like a certain point where you kind of said, "Oh, this is not just like an idea, it's actually, it's happening"?
I mean, I have thought about this a little bit since now we're, doing it quite seriously. And I suppose it, like, depends how far back you look, because I think it was always kind of there. Like, it feels like a good fit when I'm actually happy working and doing stuff, is when I'm problem solving and making new things and thinking across, like, disciplines. But it's like, I think that has always been there from, like, a very young age. Technically speaking, Thrift is not the first startup that I was involved in. It's 100% the most serious and the one that I've gone furthest with, and actually have experience now that can make it work for real. But when I was in university, I was studying computer science at UCT, University of Cape Town. There was, like, this, I don't know, a bit of a craze going on at the time with, like, Kickstarter and tech startups. It was quite like just quite a cool era. And I did have one other startup attempt, and that did not work out in the end, but it was fun. I can speak a bit more about it if you like, but basically there was a little spike then. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. I think I need to get a job. I went and got jobs. I worked for like 12 years, and here we are back again trying to start something, but just with a little more experience under the belt.
Did you start it on your own, or was it with some other people?
So it was initially on my own, and then I linked up with some university colleagues or like just basically other students who I was friends with. And in a nutshell, it was like, honestly, an idea that, looking back at it, like, it was way too ambitious. Like, there was no way as I would be able to pull this off. It was basically like a hardware startup, not a software one, really. And it was all to do with this thing where you have a smartphone and then you plug your smartphone into different accessories that turn it into a different type of computer. So, like, you have a phone, but then you plug it into a bigger screen and it turns into a desktop with a mouse and keyboard, or a laptop shell that makes it into a laptop. But at the end of the day, all the brains and all the data and all that is in the phone. There's still some evidence out there on the internet about it, but it was cool. Like, it was an idea that turned into something kind of real. It's sort of a working prototype, and then there was a student pitching competition overseas that happened. Yeah, there was a whole experience there, and it was just as scary and just as like crazy as currently now feels, except I'm like 19 years old with zero work experience and haven't even finished my degree and thinking it's going to work. It maybe could have. Since then, actually, it's now a feature of Android that you can literally do this with your phone. But I think it was a little too ambitious for where I was at the time.
I was just about to ask, like, the most successful entrepreneurs, like, they're all dropouts, so they don't finish school.
Look, I think there was a point where I could have maybe pursued it further, but I just decided, you know what, like, I want to finish my degree. I want to, my parents have supported me through this, thankfully, very privileged for that. And I don't want to, like, this is also towards the end of, like, middle to end of my degree. I actually wanted to just see it over the line and get that piece of paper and say, I did it. I abandoned that startup idea reluctantly. but eventually it needed to happen, and I decided to just go out there and get some work experience.
So how did you then started Thrift? How did that idea or came along?
Yeah. I mean, from that first startup idea I mentioned, there was quite a bit of time. I spent some time worked at app development agency in Stellenbosch near Cape Town. It was called 4i Mobile. I then went to work at 2 startups based in Cape Town. So the first was Luno, which is still a pretty successful crypto wallet. Another was called Over, Over, which was like a Canva equivalent that started here in Cape Town. And then, yeah, it was around that time that I was also like getting into like quite serious dev stuff, trying to be involved in my local developer community, etc., and trying to be an expert in a particular area of software engineering, which was Android app development and all that. And sort of like all the stars aligned, and I was offered a role at Google. So I went to work there for a few years, where I was mostly tasked with helping other people to implement very good Android apps on Google's behalf. So that's what it was. But then, yeah, I ended up moving back to South Africa. I lived overseas in Germany, like to work there. But I moved back to South Africa. I joined GoDaddy for a little bit of time because GoDaddy actually acquired that other startup I worked at called Over. So it was like all my old colleagues. They were happy to welcome me back to work on the app that I had kind of worked on before. But I think basically where I'm getting to is that like throughout all this whole process, like a lot of experience was built up in agency and startup and corporate, different countries, whether it's working here in South Africa or abroad, and traveling and speaking and communities and all of that. And I think like the experience was invaluable, obviously, and I learned a ton, but it maybe all was a journey that eventually took me back to that same place where I was in varsity, where I'm happiest when I'm making something new or making something of my own. And yeah, making something that feels like it could help people, that it would be a wonderful experience to use, whatever it might be. But as I got a bit more along in the journey of my career, I also wanted to do something that might make an actual difference, or at least try to. And it's sort of when I was in the last job that I had at GoDaddy, all of this stuff, like, yeah, I don't know, it all became a realization that, you know, I've worked now for a long time, not getting any younger or whatever. Now is the time to try something. And that something was Thrift. And there's so many reasons for that. It's probably worth noting that like I co-founded it with my partner, Michaela, and we started it together. So but I can go into like, sorry?
You knew each other before, or you were like together before you started?
Yeah, we knew each other for a long time before. We're a couple. We still are a couple who started a business together. And yeah, we're at similar stages in our careers in terms of like we had worked for others for a fair bit of time, and we both wanted to make something of our own. But there were shared values of like make something that's really great to use for people, make something that makes a difference, like make something that's going to work in South Africa because it's a uniquely challenging place to do anything in some ways. And yeah, there's the whole like angle of fashion and sustainability and why that's, which is a whole story of its own. But yeah, I guess to not ramble on too much, effectively it was just like a almost semi gut feel, but then also a bit strategic of like, it's time now to start something of our own, and let's just do this. Let's go for it.
Was it like you had the idea for the startup already, or was it more like you had a feeling like you wanted to start something on your own and then the idea came?
Both, actually. I think that feeling of wanting to start something had been there brewing for a while. We came up with the idea together. Basically, we were both quite big fans of basically vintage, secondhand, thrifting, shopping, for a variety of reasons. Cost-wise, it's a little bit more affordable. There's a certain like thrill in the hunt of it. There's a sustainability angle, but yeah, it also just felt cool. And when I was living overseas and when we would travel overseas, like you would go there and obviously there's lots of physical stores, and that's, the case in a lot of major cities. But the thing that stood out was that overseas there's like multiple online platforms for doing this. If you want to, buy and sell secondhand online, you've got Vinted, Depop, Poshmark, you've got eBay even. So there's like loads of options of like really well built and well established products that you can turn to if you live in Europe or perhaps the US. But in South Africa, there was only one. And I'm not counting Facebook Marketplace because that's obviously always going to be there and is crazy and whatever. But more of a bespoke platform for doing it. And there was only one. And we had used it a bit and we liked it, but we thought to ourselves like, A, it's never a bad thing to have multiple options. And B, we sort of backed ourselves to say, yes, there might be one in South Africa. It's called Yaga, but maybe we could make something better. Maybe our combined experience from my side, software engineering, and from her side, digital marketing and e-commerce, and with our, motivations and our, knowledge of the local scene here, maybe we could come up with something, whether it's through tech or a business model or a brand or whatever, make something that people would like to use.
And did you did you then start like jumping in the cold water, or like did you do like a hybrid approach?
Yeah,
a little bit of a saving emergency.
Yeah, a bit of all of that really. But I think there was. I guess it's also worth noting that we had this idea, but we also, we did have jobs. We're a little bit on in our life now as well, where we've got some, not like too many responsibilities, but we have things to pay for. So we're like, is there a business case here? And I think the signs that we saw of the usage numbers on Yaga was really high and growing. Facebook Marketplace is obviously very high. And then there's like all this activity in secondhand buying and selling going on in South Africa, kind of bubbling below the surface. So on WhatsApp groups, on Facebook pages, on there's a lot of physical like markets and stores and all that. So we got a good sense that there's actually a very big market to it here. I don't even think you can fully quantify it because, as I said, a lot of it can be quite informal, but Yaga's numbers alone are very impressive. So we're like, well, there is something here. It's not like we can never turn this into a real business. So I should just add that. So we kind of took the idea, we sort of took the, a bit of research into saying there is something that could grow and scale and actually be a functional business here. And then, we brainstormed for a while about how we would do this and how we would differentiate ourselves from the existing player, which still is Yaga. And that's where it started before we dipped our toes in. So we ideated a little bit for a while. And this was still while we were working. Still had full-time jobs. We even doing crazy stuff in our lives, we were renovating an apartment at the same time. There was a lot going on. But we were also formulating this business idea. Initially, it was going to be basically exactly like how Vinted is, peer-to-peer online platform for buying and selling secondhand. Nice UX, nice brand, nice app, whatever.
So did you get into kind of competitive dynamic, or I don't know, where you maybe had some thoughts about our shit? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is an existing player who has a huge market share, really. And so I guess it occurred to us that, yes, we could do that, maybe, but maybe we need to also differentiate ourselves in our business model. So that ideation process went from, okay, how do we differentiate ourselves perhaps with tech and product and whatever, but what could we do from a business model perspective that would make us seem even more unique compared to Yaga? And it's actually where we discovered this other kind of business model for secondhand stuff. So instead of a peer-to-peer marketplace, which is really you're just the online platform in between buyers and sellers, there's this idea of a managed marketplace. And we took quite a lot of inspiration again from existing businesses overseas. So in Europe, there's one called Sellpy, and in the US, there's a company called ThreadUp. Again, they're also very big. Like ThreadUp is a publicly traded company. Sellpy was acquired by H&M. And their model is you have stuff to sell. We will collect your stuff, physically bring it to our warehouse and do all the like quality checking, photography, online listing, fulfillment of orders, and basically do a at scale consignment service for people with secondhand goods who don't want to go through the process of posting online, dealing with people. They just want to send it away. If it sells, cool, they get some money. And so there was this whole circularity thing built into that as well, where like we take people's stuff and we don't buy it from them, we hold it for a month. We try and sell as much of it as we can. But if anything doesn't sell, you as a seller get the option to pick, should it be returned to me, like anything that didn't sell, or are you happy for Thrift to recycle or donate on your behalf? So that's nothing ever really goes to waste. So all of this was quite attractive to us. It was like, it's a different business model. There's like a lot of convenience built in. There's this idea of like we could standardize the quality, because usually secondhand marketplaces are like this crazy mess of things where you have to wade through like a lot of bad listings before you find good ones. So there's lots of like reasons for it. So we also knew that no one was doing this in South Africa at the time. So at least at scale. Yeah, we went for it. We picked that business model. We picked the name Thrift. Came up with like a color palette. We, did all those funny little things in the beginning. We bought a domain, thrift.store, which we thought was quite cool. And then
how long did it take you to actually get the name and the domain and like the email? Like, because I can I know like some founders, like they think they have the name and then the domain is taken.
Yeah, well, actually quite a while. I think that whole thing took at least a few weeks, if not a month, to decide on a name and then see if domains were available. I'm trying to think what the other options were at the time, but there were a bunch of them. What was quite nice is that like almost every domain with Thrift was taken. Like obviously that's a very common word, but Thrift without the T was almost all domains were available. So we're like, okay, well, that's something short and sharp and like
expensive. Like
no, it wasn't too expensive either. I'll be honest. At the time I was working at GoDaddy, so best believe I used my discounts on domains. It's not like it was that expensive to begin with, but so we kind of did all that initial stuff, and then our approach from there was let's validate this, let's test this model in the real world, because there obviously is a physical angle to it. It's not just a digital product, but like really hack it together and just put it out there and see if people want it. So,
and when was the time when you said like, okay, now I'm gonna like file a company, or like I'm like legally binding in a way, taking over responsibility?
That came after we validated it. So we had this like period where we were doing it from our apartments. We set up this thing with like Instagram and WhatsApp and Google Sheets and whatever to like arrange collections from people. The stuff arrived literally in our apartments. We quality checked and steamed the items. Here we photographed them literally on our white wall in our bedroom, and we posted them online for sale. And we didn't even have a website at this stage. We just had an Instagram page. And it kind of like it just basically our apartment got overrun with other people's clothes, which is to say it grew, and there was obvious signs of demand for it. And then people were also buying the stuff from us because we took nice photos. I guess we were nice and consistent, responded very quickly if people wanted to know more details. I guess like we started to take what was purely an idea, obviously inspired from what other companies were doing, but an idea that was albeit hacked together but still working. So I think that at that stage we realized, okay, there might be something here, but we obviously can't do this with a hacked together way and from our apartment and whatever. So it's around like maybe I think it was towards the end of 2024. We've been doing this for a while. It was starting to get a bit crazy to do this and our jobs, and we decided to quit our jobs. We filed the company to make it official. yeah, in sort of another era began where we started to build a real digital product, a website. We grew our team by 2 people, actually, no, more, 3 people. And we got a micro warehouse instead of, living in a secondhand clothing store.
And did you have
Yeah.
support by your family, or were you like, this is nonsense?
I mean,
Or friends?
fortunately, our family members and friends are all super supportive.
Yeah.
It's not to say they 100% got it and maybe even still get it, because like only I think that truly as a founder. But it was pretty cool because like our friends actually used the service. They like sent us their stuff and we sold it for them, or they bought from us. So it was like one of those ideas where like your everyday person on the street, including our friends and family members, like they wasn't like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. I'll try that. So we had like people from like our parents live in like small towns across South Africa, like sending us their stuff, and it worked. So
Yeah.
I still think there was like this initial part, and maybe even it's still there a little bit, where they're like, putting your job in big tech to sell secondhand clothes seems interesting. But I think they're so polite that they're like, yeah, we trust you.
But still, like, experience the South African culture is like they don't really like that much risk, especially if you have like a so-called safe job or you have a really good salary, international brand. Like about the son, like who has been working in whatsoever.
Exactly. I mean, it's a general perhaps mindset, but fortunately, overall, I'd say our friends and family are really supportive and actually pretty open-minded too. And some of them entrepreneurs as well. Like many of them are not like in the startup space per se, but yeah, most of them have run their own businesses or done their own things at some point in their life. So I think they got it and they were very supportive. But yeah, that said, we did need to raise a little bit of funding initially. So there's also that. But yeah, I guess we basically just went for it after validating it for a while, coming up with the idea, figuring out if like this is something we could do, and like we thought we could. We kind of made it official. Yeah, as you said, got the domain, the company, the warehouse, and all that.
Was there some moments where you thought like, I'm throwing the towel, or I don't know, like maybe that was not the smartest move, or like you had some, I don't know.
There has been, honestly speaking, there's been a lot of those moments. It is a difficult thing to do, I think, starting a startup in general. And I think it's incredibly exciting at times, but there's also times when like it has high highs and low lows. And I think probably the thing for us that's hit a few times is that like it's all down to us. Like you're 100% responsible for the survival and success and all of that of this thing. And it's that can feel burdensome if things aren't going so well, but it can also feel very empowering if they are. So it's like, yeah, there have been times where definitely I've been like, what am I doing? Why did I do this? But then I'll like wake up the next day and be like, that was dumb. I like doing this. Like this is actually quite cool. And I'm learning a heck of a lot and having a good time.
Yeah. Do you have like a person or like a coach or a mentor or like just other entrepreneurs, other founders who can?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, I think one thing we did from the beginning and something that I personally pushed for from early on, and it comes actually from my own experience in before doing any startup stuff, like being in the local developer communities. So meetup groups and stuff where developers will get together and just talk about like, I did this to make my app do this or some tech thing. And I was quite involved in that in Cape Town, like for a long time. I ran a meetup group here called Google Developer Group Cape Town, GDG, still going, just with different people running it now. And so I've always liked going to community stuff because there's like a support there, as you said. And luckily, like at the time when we started this, it felt as if the startup founder kind of community is really was starting to pick up in Cape Town. And so, yeah, like funny enough, that first ever job I had in Stellenbosch, that the boss I had at that job. His name is Rainier. Like he started something called the Open Letter, which is a founder community and a newsletter and all that. Free advertising, I think. Anyway, like it was that started. There was another one called Startup Club ZA, which we've been to. There's one called Opus. And then all these things just popped up at a very similar time to when we were starting this. And we just went to like all of them.
Yeah.
And in doing so, we've gotten a lot of support, I think a lot of validation of what we're doing. Like we've actually met people we've directly done partnerships with as well, or just to bounce stuff off of. So that has been really valuable. Sometimes you go out of your comfort zone a bit, like you go to these things and you're like, wow, I know nothing compared to some of the people here. But over time, you get that imposter syndrome drops a little bit and you're like, okay, actually, we're all kind of finding our way through this.
I actually don't know the answers.
Yeah. And actually, at the end of the day, if you really care about a problem, you probably are the one best to know the answers. But still, we've learned a lot. I've gotten a lot of support from those, a lot of mentorship. I mean, I'll openly also say I go to therapy regularly. Like that's something I also chose to do this year in particular. I'd never done before, and maybe I had this like stigma about it. Oh, I don't need that or whatever. But like, it's actually been really nice, and that's certainly been a space for me to discuss sometimes work-related stresses or thoughts or questions. But then at the same time, cool part is I work with my life partner, so we get to talk the most real talk to each other at any time. Not only that, but like the employees that we have now, I hate to say employees because it almost sounds like, but anyway, the people we work with who are working at Thrift, all of them are friends.
Okay.
It's all like, so Calvin is one of my oldest friends from way back in like first year of high school. Okay. He's the web engineer. Danelle we initially met her. She stayed in the flat above us for a while and we met her, and she's a UX designer, and so that's how we know her as well, and we've become really good friends. And then Ali and Lydia, it's like basically my brother's girlfriend, like our domestic worker. We all just kind of pulled together and worked with people who we trust like completely, but B can be very open with and honest with and just like almost mentor each other. So it all feels actually quite supportive, and I think that's been one thing we've done fairly well. Yeah,
but that's great because like also heard, maybe that's more like it could be more a German thing, I don't know, but like I met some people at actually unicorn startup, and they said like they don't mingle with their team members as like, like a superior, like you have to hold like a certain distance. Yeah. But I could also see that they were struggling because at the end you're hanging out all the time, so you're kind of best friends, but then you're not.
Yeah, I mean, like whatever works. I'm definitely the type of person to say like there's not a one size fits all for anyone or any company or any country or any whatever. But I do appreciate that at the core of it, like we are all friends, and although it's like we can be very honest and like we can be critical of each other as well without it being personal, but there's still like a generally good vibe, and feeling that everyone cares about one another, and there's a very good sense of humor too. So overall, like it feels warm. It feels like, and that hasn't in any way for us, it feels like impacted like the productivity or the success. Like we have to have a hierarchy, and we have to have strict stuff because otherwise we won't get work done. Like we do work very hard, and we often work beyond normal work hours, but because we're kind of enjoying it.
Yeah. And did you also set up a contract between you and your business/life partner, or was it rather like, I'm just asking because
it's a good question. To be fair, it's actually come up a couple of times. We've spoken to like VCs and stuff, and they'll be like, so what?
I usually don't like it.
What happens? For us, like, I mean, we are like 50-50 co-founders, shareholders. So that's just been that way from the beginning. And that is still the case. There've been a lot of like discussions with it around like, we've spoken honestly with each other about it. But I think there is just this inherent knowledge that we both really want this to work. We've figured out that boundary now. Initially we didn't know it too well, but like figured out the boundary between work and personal. Had to slightly adjust even how we do things in everyday life, like given that we spend a fair bit of time together now during the day and not like only after work. But we've made it work, and like there isn't, I mean, to be completely honest, there isn't a strict formal contract in place, but we've had the discussion, we know like how it is, but I think there's just this core belief that like that isn't actually going to happen. We both want this to work so bad, and we both care about each other a lot that like
it's like a baby. It's there, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, precisely. It actually does feel like that. I'm not familiar with one of those yet, but imagine there's some similarities.
Yeah. But did the VC then like ask you to have like one person to have like a majority of the votes at least, or like, because I know how they normally work. So yeah.
No, but they just wanted to have like a clause in place to define what happens if you split, basically.
Of course. Yeah.
It's almost a depressing topic to think about, but at the same time, like that's the purpose of like if you are going to be attaching yourself to like another entity like a VC, which is completely you might be friends and all that, and you might have a good vibe, but at the end of the day it's two businesses, it's quite cold and quite contractual. Like then I see the need for it. It's something we have spoken about. It didn't actually materialize that with that VC in particular, but it did make us aware of the fact that we probably need to address that whenever we do speak to VCs or perhaps anyone of that nature.
I worked in VC, that's why I know that. Was it hard for you to actually raise money then, or like did you have to go to like many VCs, or was it, I don't know, like 101 and you got the money finally?
I mean, the VC journey, and I mean it's still ongoing, honestly, but that I would say the VC, like almost upskilling ourselves to be in a position to actually know how to raise capital and to what to do there. Like we both have like tech and marketing, we're comfortable with that, we've been doing it for ages, but neither of us have ever raised any like capital. So that upskilling, I would argue, was probably one of the biggest challenges in all this. Because honestly, I went in completely blind. Like I'd worked in startups, I vaguely knew kind of how it worked, but to be honest, I'd always just been in my bubble of like, I do the Android app, I'm going to just write the code and then I'll go home and my life is fine. But so we initially started really just by like researching as much as we could, like tapping into those communities we spoke about to just ask for advice, and lots of video calls with like past colleagues who are now doing startups to just people that we met, and eventually like wrapping our head around this idea of casting your net quite wide in the beginning and then just seeing what comes back. And we went through that journey last year. We didn't cast it too wide, but we sent it out to like a few people, local and abroad. We had a good experience with one where the relationship developed. There was a long due diligence process, which taught us a lot about like what we should be looking out for, like what are the healthy signs of our business in particular doing well or not. There was like developing negotiation skills. There was an appreciation of that these things take time, especially in South Africa. And ultimately, we didn't go with the deal, but we did get given a deal. So it was kind of a win, but also, obviously slightly deflating for them and for us that it didn't work out. But at the same time, it was, I believe, for us a necessary learning experience to understand what the VC process looks like, because up until that point, it was entirely just like theory. But that whole experience, despite, ending with us on a maybe not the note we would have wanted, it still taught us like a whole lot about how to do it. And I still feel like I only know like a little bit, but it's a lot more than when we started.
Yeah. I mean, it's also a full-time job you have to do on the side, besides like you running the tech side. It's a lot of work. Yeah.
That as well. I mean, just knowing and appreciating that, like, honestly, it's probably it should be someone else's full-time job, but we had the people that we had, and we had to make do with what we had. And so yeah, but I even though it was a bit stressful, like, I enjoyed learning about this like new world of like, how does this all work?
But
actually, pretty fortunately,
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, pretty fortunately, and something I didn't mention is that what was quite cool is that we have a very close friend. We actually have two close friends, but the one in particular is her name is Jill, and she actually, around a similar time to us starting Thrift, started her own fund called Misfit Ventures, and it's a different like kind of fund that's aimed at different types of investments. Really, what we are looking for per se, but Jill had all this experience in working in VC prior to her starting it, and was like an invaluable person to really bounce all of this stuff off. Like, how does that work? What does that acronym mean? Like, why does this happen now? Like, all those things. Learned tons off her, and then slightly like traded favors with each other, where like we might come in and say, hey, so we tech thing or tech advice on maybe an area where their company needed some help. So that was actually very, very helpful. I forgot to mention that.
Did you also thought about not raising funds, or was there like no other option to, like, you had to?
We did think about it. The problem with what we initially started with, that business model, is that it requires physical space in order to scale. So you need a warehouse, which you pay rent for. You need staff to work in the warehouse, who you pay salaries to. And that's sort of directly related to how fast you can process someone's items coming in and how fast they get up online for sale and how much of that you can do. It became apparent to us that we would need to do that. But then again, as well, like we had a team of like 4 or 5 at the time. We needed to pay maybe not crazy salaries, but something that will, keep the lights on for all of us. So, but we did actually end up raising some capital, but it was pretty much all through angel investors, past colleagues, as well as friends and family, but not everyone. I think everyone in our network wasn't maybe the best fit for this, but fortunately we do have those investors now who have really helped us to stay alive throughout all this craziness, and have also been incredible mentors to us. Like, we chat with them very often, and they are arguably the most real with us. Like, they give us the feedback that they'll sometimes leave the call and be like, oh, okay, we've got some things to work on, but you need that. So
yeah, you need that. Yeah, it's true. So is there something you wish you would have known before you started this entire process? Or like, was there kind of, I don't know.
Probably like a million things I could list, but there's no ways I could have known it. So
no.
I guess like what's shaping in my mind now is like the order in which people do things. Like, why do they make a startup stealth for a while? Is this one thing I just thought of, like, I don't know, a few weeks ago. And then I was like, oh, actually, like, I kind of get it. Like, because once you put it out there publicly, like, it all just starts happening. And maybe you don't want that like noise. Or the whole VC thing, probably, geez, like, I needed like a brain download of all of that. But I don't know. There's been lots of things, but I think like.
But is there something you would like other founders to talk more about?
I think like, I don't know, what you're doing here with this was to talk a bit more real about it, and to have places to go where you can almost hear people not venting, but like being honest. And you do find that a bit at the community events and at the like all those things that we went to and all of that. But at the same time, people, they're also there like networking and trying to
Showing the
I think
best
South
side.
Africa, showing their best. I mean, that's natural. Like we also do that a bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want like, yeah, the real talk.
Yeah.
But fortunately, with our like sort of close network of friends, also starting things, and some, the mentors and the colleagues and the angel investors, like we did kind of get that. But it would be cool to see in a slightly more like accessible way, where like anyone who's starting this journey, who's scared about it, who's thinking about all the many things that could go wrong, like to know that like, yeah, it's fine, they do, and like maybe something like.
Yeah. And would you say that it's even harder in South Africa compared to, I don't know, where like in the States there's like a lot of VC money and it's kind of like natural language.
Yeah.
You're like there, or like the risk like taking mentality is a bit more present, or I don't know. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, from what I've heard, like it, because I don't have hands-on experience really of like ever raising capital anywhere else, but I mean, it's, I think no secret that it is easier to do that in like the States and even in Europe compared to here. It's not impossible though, and it's just maybe a little bit harder. But I would say, like, aside from the capital raising part, yeah, there's probably a few things that are like just related to the like scaffolding of starting a startup and like how many people are already doing it. Is there like a playbook to it?
Yeah.
Which is still itself forming, it feels like, in South Africa, and particularly in like Cape Town and Joburg, it feels like it's sort of blossoming at the moment. But at the same time, I think like a lot of opportunity here to solve problems that are sometimes unique to here, or just because we're still kind of early in this startup boom compared to other countries. There isn't an existing competitor, or like you can even take a business model that you've seen successfully work overseas, and yeah, you'll have to like massage it a bit to like work for the uniqueness of here, but feasibly do that. So I don't know, there's yes and no.
Yeah. Maybe one last question. In terms of like, well, personal real talk, what would you say was like your biggest personal shift, or like, because you always say like when you start a business, you also go through like identity work. Like, I mean, you have a lot of hats on. Is there something like when you see yourself today that you would have not seen it in that from that perspective, or you would talk in a different way, or like your perspective has shifted in a sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, like I'd always been comfortable with building things, and that is my like happy place. But I think the perspective shift has been like I actually don't naturally gravitate towards marketing, and I'm quite a bit more reserved, or like I don't like being boastful or coming across as boastful. So talking about Thrift and putting it out there and like almost like selling it doesn't come that naturally to me, but I'm aware that that's kind of, or now aware that that's kind of crucial to its overall, performance, success, whatever you want, or just to get it working and to get people to trust that the thing that you're building is legit and all of that. So definitely that's, I guess then on top of that, I've really had to like up my finance game. Like I wasn't never bad with finance, but I was maybe a bit more like, I don't know, now I almost economics, understanding that, or at least having a handle on that, is also quite important. Like ultimately, yes, it's like completely a non-profit. Like it has to make money to survive, and it has to make money for you to raise investment. So just like getting over the maybe existential thoughts about that and just saying, okay, it does have to, so let's make that happen. I'd say those two.
In South Africa, that you still have a good lifestyle.
Yeah, no, that's true. No, we do. And yeah, we have wonderful people who we've met and worked with, and people have been customers as well. Like that overall, that's quite nice. And it's quite cool to have like, because what we're doing technically could affect anyone. We've, worked with people all over the country and like had customers from all kinds of areas, backgrounds. So I think that part has been actually very cool.
Yeah. So one very last question, like how can the listeners or the community help you? Is there anything, I mean, they can shop, I guess. Where do they find you?
Yeah, well, I'm going to take this opportunity to do a small bit of selling, but also just a clarification, because I realized I didn't actually say this at any point during the call yet, but we actually recently changed our business model.
Okay.
So we no longer do the thing where we collect from your house and process stuff in our warehouse and then put it up for sale. That is incredibly hard to scale. And it's not to say we will never do it. Like, I think we do want to bring it back eventually because we know that there's a need for it, but we have shifted our focus now to being a bit more of a software offering. So we built all this like internal tech that we use in our warehouse to really like assist us in like managing the inventory of all these like one-of-one secondhand items, of getting stuff up online fast with photos that you can take on a phone that look nice and consistent, and uses AI to like generate the details like the brand, the price, the materials, the description. And so what we've now started doing is that we are partnering with thrift stores, with brands that have stock overflow, and soon even sustainably made local garments and upcycled items, and giving those companies access to the tech that we built so that they can sell their stock through our store. So that's the like supplying side of things. And already we've already got, I think, 3 businesses signed up and doing that. And yeah, it's quite awesome to see like stuff just sort of flowing in and not having to like oversee all the physical operation ourselves. So if you are a seller, and if you are a thrift store, and if you are a brand, a local brand or whatever that, you know, has dead stock or wants to recoup revenue for that, get hold of us, because supply is good. But if you're just a consumer, go to our website, and I hope you find something that you like. Like, we are aware that like in order for this to really work, we need like thousands, maybe tens of thousands of items, but that is growing day by day. And we're improving like the website UX and stuff around sizing and all of that. Like, it's a constant thing that we're working on to improve. But go have a look. If you find something you like, buy it. It's honestly pretty affordable. It is more sustainable. If anything goes wrong, you can always reach out to us. We're actually quite friendly. We have like WhatsApp and email and Instagram and social media. So it's not like you just going to buy something and then you don't know what to do with it. We do offer returns as well, so it's really low risk. So yeah, that would help.
Cool.
Sales
Yeah,
are good.
well, spread the word. I mean, people love to buy.
Yeah, we all get very excited when new orders come in, so it definitely provides the serotonin to the team. Yeah, any supporters are good, like whether that's a follow or just checking out our website or socials, like, is also perfect.
Supply, is it only shops in Cape Town, South Africa, or like where do you have?
No, so it's across the whole of South Africa. For example, the first business that signed up with us as a, you know, an actual like supplier seller, so not sending stuff to us but doing everything themselves, is a company that we've had a great relationship with for a while. They're called Clothes to Good. They're an amazing non-profit, mission-driven business that just wants to do everything good. And you can do that from anywhere in South Africa, whether you're a small thrift store or a big brand with stock overflow or something in between.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, it's great to talk to you, Nick. Perfect. Thanks for listening. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.